So I've always been passionate about business. I started my first business when I was 16. I studied entrepreneurship at university. I started Ecopproach when I was 23 years old. So business is a passion of mine. The energy performance certificate is where this business started. It was all about the EPC. And that was a great place, I thought, to start, because it really is the beginning of the journey to making energy efficiency improvements and looking at net zero, because it's collecting all the data around energy efficiency of buildings. So I thought that was such a great place to be, and just to kind of show how that's changed since we started 10, 11 years ago, is back then just 16% of properties of homes were rated from A to C in energy efficiency. Now that's more like 50%. So there's a massive improvement in energy efficiency of homes that we've made in such a short period of time. So that's all looking at the data, and I think that's really important as we try and progress towards net zero, that you're looking at the data. But your vision for the business and the aspirations kind of have changed over the years, and it becomes less about the data and more about, well, how can we actually deliver this? How do we actually get into people's homes? You know, let's actually be putting solar panels on roofs. Let's get insulation on the walls. Let's be putting air source heat pumps in and making that real positive impact and drive towards net zero. We work in different markets now across 3 divisions. So we work with certification and compliance, with heating, and with retrofitting, and a range of different services across those divisions. But that's taken 11 years to get to that stage. And I think one of the most significant challenges along the way is being able to offer such a wide range of services, often on a national scale, and still be able to fulfill those at the right service levels. You know, that's really tricky. So for every business, you're going to have the first job, okay? Whether that's the first time you're putting in a smart meter, or the first time you're installing solar panels on a roof, or the first time you're putting an air source heat pump in. These are really big moments for the business. Like, these are crucial to get right. And I think the key to that is bringing the right people in, having the right experienced people in the business, not just the installers, but the management, the people that are going to manage the process and actually deliver on these projects. You know, that's crucial. Like, often you're investing in bringing the right people into the business, building on that infrastructure before you then go out to market with a service, and that takes a bit of investment up front. But what it allows you to do is go to market with the right people in the business, and being able to say you can do this and you can deliver it. And when you do start a project, you deliver it well, your reputation of the business is what builds from then onwards. Carry on doing what we're doing. I think we've got a great business in a great industry, and we're able to make like a real positive impact on what's important in net zero. And we just need to carry on doing that and delivering well in that. I think strategically our direction will be more towards net zero services. That's where the business is going, and I think that's a great place to be, and we'll just keep pushing in that direction. So we've been in business 11 years now, and every year of that we've had continued growth. So it's a great journey so far. And I think what was pivotal for me is, as you grow that business, the success and the growth of the business becomes less relied on me individually, but more about the decisions that my leadership team is making. So hiring the right people is really key. Now, I've got 3 young children, and before kids, I'd be in the office doing crazy hours. I'd be all over every business decision that gets made. And I think just naturally, for me anyway, having kids forces you to take that step back and kind of hand over some of that responsibility to others. And what you sort of notice is you've taken that step back, but the business continues to flourish, it continues to grow, and you realise that you don't need to be over every business decision that gets made. And you can sort of entrust people to just get on with it. And that was really pivotal for me. So what you're looking at for when you're hiring is experience is crucial. Like, you can have the best person that you think you're going to get on with as a great friend or a mate of yours, but unless they've got that experience in that industry and have been there and done that, I think that's where you realise that they can just deliver so much better when they've got that experience. Obviously, they need to be passionate about what you're trying to do. They need to believe in the vision of what we're trying to do and buy into that and want to put 100% commitment in and deliver. And if you can get those things, you've got a really good chance of hiring the right person. So for me, I'm an entrepreneur. My background is not heating, it's not electrical, it's not through the process of being an apprentice, and I've had 20 years of experience with heating. So what that means is, yes, I can believe in the vision of the business and where we're trying to go, but what I need to do is make sure I've surrounded myself with technical people that understand the different services that we're doing, so that we deliver it right first time for the clients. So my leadership style is very much laissez-faire. So it means that I'm not on my employees' backs all the time looking over their shoulder. It gives them the freedom to make their own decisions, their own mistakes, but also that space to be creative, to have that entrepreneurial flair. And I think that's really important, and it creates that environment of a more relaxed culture. But as your business grows, it's also really important to have good communication as well. So we've gone through fast growth, and what happens is you're bringing in lots of new faces into the business, and sometimes your employees don't really know what's happening at the helm of the business. So unless you're communicating that well, they see all these new people and don't really understand what's going on. So I think that's where communication's really key with your employees. Are you simple things like employee newsletters and company socials and stuff really goes a long way to keeping everyone feeling like they're all involved in the business and they know what's happening at the helm of the business and what sort of direction we're trying to go in. As the business gets larger, for example, it's harder to have that entrepreneurial flair. So what you find, for example, is you'll have decisions take longer to be made, and you've got to just fight that as you can to stay agile. The more you can fight sort of that slower response, the more agile you'll be as a business. So if you find you're in a boardroom and you've got 10 people sitting around the board table, you kind of think, do you need to all be here? Is this the best use of everyone's time, or do you just need a couple of decision makers there to make the decision and then move on? So for us, setting a long-term vision seems to be really important. So, if we say that by 2030, we want to be able to reduce carbon emissions by X number of tonnes, then that gives you a clear vision of what you're trying to achieve. And then what it's about is, well, how are you going to do that? What services do we need to be able to offer to achieve that? And at what volume do they need to be done at? And then it's just about going out and delivering that. With spotting new opportunities, obviously a lot of what we do is led by changes in government legislation and so on. So it's a really big change for us when we go from a Conservative government to a Labour government, and what's going to change around legislation. So we're always keeping an eye on changes in legislation that's going to affect us, because there's funding that's in place that may be here today, but it might be gone tomorrow. And there might be new funding opportunities that come in. Obviously, there's a grant for installing an air source heat pump. So as a homeowner, you can go and get a £7,500 grant to install one. And it's things like that you really want to be on top of to make sure that you're bang up to date with any changes. To a certain degree, obviously every business takes risks. It's about working out what your appetite to risk is. Because you're an entrepreneur doesn't mean that you take risks everywhere, and these are high-stake gamblers' tables and things like this. It's very different to that, actually. It's quite calculated, and I'm probably quite risk-averse in what we do, in making sure that the business is successful in years and years to come. Yeah, so as a business, most of what we do is B2B. So the services we provide are normally to other businesses, to energy companies, to local authorities. But a lot of what we do as well is B2C. So if you're selling your house and you need an energy performance certificate, we can do that. If you've just bought a house and you want to put solar panels on your roof, we can do that too. And a B2C business is very different to how you'd work in a B2B business. And I think one of the mistakes we made was on that B2C side. I was convinced the right area for growth for the business a few years ago was installing electric vehicle charging points into people's homes. Growing industry, more and more people having electric vehicles. And I was convinced that we needed to be selling those directly to homeowners. So we invested heavily in front-end website and the infrastructure to be able to do this. We spent huge amounts of money on marketing, on paid ads to bring the traffic to the site. And do you know what? We were installing decent numbers of vehicle charging points in people's homes, but the problem was we wasn't actually making any money in that part of the business. In fact, it was losing money, because what was happening is it was so competitive. Other companies that we were competing against were happy to lose money in the short term, well, even the medium term, just to gain market share. And that wasn't a position that we were able to take. And do you know what? We also were a bit slow to react to that as well. We stayed in that market for too long, and we should have moved out of it quicker. We should have realised that wasn't the right space for us. But we still put electric vehicle charging points in now, but we do it on a B2B model. We fit the units for other businesses that need our labour, our services, to go and install their products, and that works much better for us. It's difficult because you've already invested quite a bit of money, a few £100,000 or whatever it is into that. You've hired some key people. We hired a director for EV charging. So you brought in a director level to manage this operation. So it meant making someone redundant for that division as we sort of closed down. So it's not. That's why you keep pushing that can down the road to think, oh, maybe things will work out. The industry will change and suddenly we will get this profitable, and you kind of delay it further and further. Where really business is tough, and at some point you just say, no, stop it there. Let's move on and concentrate everyone's efforts on what is going to work, because it's like things swallow your time and your energy into that certain part of the business. And what you find is if you cut that off, you're allowed to spend that energy and time on something that can thrive, and that's important. We should have known at the beginning, we should have done more research to know that there's competition here that are going to that have got deep pockets, that are backed by like EDF and other energy companies, British Gas and so on, that have really deep pockets, that they're not too worried about the short-term profit. And when you're a medium-sized business like ours, you can't afford to go against some of those big companies. It's a dangerous game to play, and we should have realised that then and said that's not the right place for us. I think you can split that in three. So start small. I think if you haven't started a business before, start a small business where the risk is low, that allows you to understand the basics of how a business will work. And you'll often find big businesses today were probably very small businesses decades ago. So it's quite easy to turn, well no, it's not quite easy, but it's possible to turn a small business into a large business over time. Secondly, make sure that you've got a clear route to profitability. I think it's quite common for new businesses to run out of cash. So if you're going to start a business, you're going to need cash. You're going to need that for you personally to live, and the business is going to need it. And unless you've come up with a clear way of how to make profit, you're going to struggle a bit further down the line. And finally, easier said than done for some, but start young. So I was fortunate enough that I started this business at 23 years old. I had another business before that, but the difference in level of responsibilities to when you're in your early 20s, you're still living at home with your parents and you can take risks. Whereas if you're married, you've got a mortgage, you've got kids, that's just a completely different decision you need to make of your appetite to risks to starting a business. I would have hired highly experienced senior managers earlier, because they truly are the leaders of growth for the business. They really push the growth for the business. But you know what, that's easier said than done, because when you're a small business, these people are expensive and you can't always bring in the experts. But what I'd say as a takeaway is, as soon as you can afford it, bring in the experts. Earlier on in the business, we were very much a business that was in certification and compliance. So think energy performance certificates, gas safety inspections, electrical safety testing. And we were very comfortable in that space. But I knew what I was trying to do was grow a large business, and to do that we were going to need to step outside of our comfort zone. So you start looking at what opportunities they are, and for me I was convinced that was heating for us. So installing new heating systems and service and repair. And it's very different to do that at scale to what we were doing with certification. But I was convinced that was the right industry to go into, and I believed strongly that we had the right team to deliver that. The team was smart enough, agile enough, passionate enough to be able to go into that market and deliver it well. And we did. We entered that and it was a success. And what it was an enabler to other work streams and to grow further on that. But not every decision you make in business is the right one. Business growth isn't a linear line up. It's much more turbulent than that. It's ups and downs. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And I think the biggest takeaway from that is if you think you've made the wrong decision, just accept that and move on and crack on with something else, because you're going to make bad decisions as you go along. It's how quickly you move on from that that's really important.